Okay, so this is the second part of our 2 week Bible study, and it's the whole Bible study is 42 Genesis 42 through 47:12. The second part is on 44 through 47:12. So we're actually taking a little bit more, a little bit bigger chunk than we even did in the first part. So I'm going to get straight to reading the text. It says, Now Joseph gave these instructions to the steward of his house. Fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. Then put my cup, the silver one, in the mouth of the youngest one's sack, along with the silver for his grain. And he did as Joseph said. As the morning dawned, the men were sent on their way with their donkeys. They had not gone far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, Go after those men at once, and when you catch up with them, say to them, Why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? This is a wicked thing you have done. When he caught up with them, he repeated these words. But they said to him, Why does the Lord say such things? Why does my Lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything like that. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouths of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become my Lord's slaves. Very well, then, he said, let it be as you say. Whoever is found to have it will become my slave. The rest of you will be free from blame. Each of them quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. Then the steward proceeded to search, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. At this, they tore their clothes. Then they all loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. Joseph was still in the house when Judah and his brothers came in, and they threw themselves on the ground before him. Joseph said to them, What is this you have done? Don't you know that a man like me can find things out by divination? What can we say to my lord? Judah replied. What can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. We are now my lord's slaves, we ourselves and the one who was found to have the cup. But Joseph said, Far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who has found to have the cup will become my slave. The rest of you go back to your father in peace. Then Judah went up to him and said, Pardon your servant, my lord. Let me speak a word to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, though you are equal to Pharaoh himself. My lord asked his servants, Do you have a father or a brother? And we answered, We have an aged father, and there is a young son born to him in his old age. His brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, Bring him down to me, so I can see for myself. And we said to my lord, The boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves him, the father will die. But you told your servants, Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again. When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him what my lord had said. Then our father said, Go back and buy a little more food. But we said, We cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us will we go. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Your servant, my father, said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, He has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in misery. So now, if the boy is not with us when I go back to your servant my father, and if my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants will bring the gray head of our father to the grave in sorrow. Your servant guaranteed the boy's safety to my father, and I said, if I do not bring him back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return to his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone leave my presence. There was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, and he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph said. God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me. Don't delay. You shall live in the region of Goshen and be near me. You, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all you have. I will provide for you there because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise, you and your household and all who belong to you will become destitute. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor accorded me in Egypt, and about everything you have seen, and bring my father down here quickly. Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin embraced him, weeping, and he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your families back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land. You are also directed to tell them, do this, take some carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and get your father and come. Never mind about your belongings, because the best of all Egypt will be yours. So the sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them carts, as Pharaoh had commanded, and he also gave them provisions for their journey. To each of them he gave new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. And this is what he sent to his father: 10 donkeys loaded up with the best things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other provisions for his journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they were leaving, he said to them, don't quarrel on the way. So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They told him, Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is ruler of all Egypt. Jacob was stunned. He did not believe them. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived, and Israel said, I'm convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. So Israel set out with all that was his, and when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, Jacob, Jacob. Here I am, he replied. I am God, the God of your father, he said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. Then Jacob left Beersheba, and Israel's sons took their father Jacob and their children and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to transport them. So Jacob and all his offspring went to Egypt, taking with them their livestock and the possessions they had acquired in Canaan. Jacob brought with him to Egypt his sons and grandsons, and his daughters and granddaughters, all his offspring. Verse 8 says, These are the names of the sons of Israel, Jacob and his descendants who went to Egypt. I'm going to skip reading that. We're not going to spend a lot of time in that. Um, and we're going to skip down to verse 26. Uh, It says, All those who went to Egypt with Jacob, those who were direct descendants, not counting his sons' wives, numbered 66 persons, with the two sons who had been born to Joseph in Egypt. The members of Jacob's family, which went to Egypt, were 70 in all. That's significant because God has just promised to make them a great nation. And when they come out of there, there's more than 70 for sure. Now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. When they arrived in the region of Goshen, Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Israel said to Joseph, Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive. Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and speak to Pharaoh and will say to him, My brothers and my father's household who were living in the land of Canaan have come to me. The men are shepherds, they tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you in and asks, What is your occupation? You should answer, Your servants have tended livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did. Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians. So I stop there and say that probably Pharaoh's intent was to bring them in um, sort of into his court or into his inner circle, and feed them as wealthy people who don't have an occupation and just care for them, which ultimately probably would have made them a part of Egypt and their culture and their people. Um, what Joseph is organizing is an opportunity for them to live separate from the Egyptians and remain a nation that is growing up and becoming a great nation. Um, Probably that led, at least in part, to their slavery, which we read about when we get to Exodus. But also probably it led to them remaining a nation, the people of God, not being swallowed up in the land of Egypt and never known as a distinct nation again. So that's just some thoughts there that may or may not come out in the study. Chapter 47. Joseph went down and told Pharaoh, My father and brothers, with their flocks and herds and everything they own, have come from the land of Canaan and are now in Goshen. Remember, Pharaoh instructed that they come down with that. Don't worry about your belongings. We got you. But that's not what happened. They brought everything they owned, including their flocks. Probably intentional by Joseph and by Jacob. He chose 5 of his brothers and presented them before Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked the brothers, What is your occupation? Your servants are shepherds, they replied to Pharaoh, just as our fathers were. They also said to him, "We have come here to live here for a while, because the famine is severe in Canaan, and your servants' flocks have no pasture. So now, please let your servants settle in Goshen." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you, and the land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in Goshen, and if you know of any among them with a special ability, put them in charge of my own livestock." Then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him before Pharaoh. After Jacob blessed Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, "How old are you?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The years of my pilgrimage are 130. My years have been few and difficult, and they do not equal the years of the pilgrimage of my fathers." Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from his presence. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers in Egypt and gave them property in the best part of the land, the district of Ramesses, and Pharaoh, as Pharaoh directed. Um, Joseph also provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food according to the number of their children. It was very difficult for me to read the name Ramesses and not say Ramses. But that's just what happens in my crazy brain. Um, all right, so that is our text, and we are over 15 minutes in, and we've just finished the text. So, fair warning. Remember that you can download PDF copies of this Bible study at www.abqnaz.org/alive, so that you can follow along with us. And number one in this part of the Bible study says, "What happened in 44, 1 and 2? A. Joseph gave instructions to the steward: fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. And then B. Put my cup, the silver one, in the mouth of the youngest one's sack, along with the silver for his grain." Now, we talked in our last Bible study, in the first part of this Bible study, about why he's doing these kind of things. Why is he accusing them of being spies? And um, you know, does he have ill motives? Is he trying to find something out? Um, he, he might, I don't know if he doesn't. If he's still trying to understand where his brothers are at, sort of mentally, emotionally, spiritually. He may think that Benjamin is in as much danger as he was in the presence of his brothers. And he may be trying to get Benjamin and Jacob to him without the rest of his brothers. I don't know, but it seems to me like you know, um, the brothers, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, offer, hey, whoever actually stole it, if you find it, they can be killed, and the rest of us will become slaves. And the steward responds, "No, the rest of you can go home. The person that stole it will become a slave." And that would have ended up with Joseph and his brother Benjamin, who were the closest to each other from the same mother, together. And who knows what would have happened after that. Joseph keeps asking if his father's alive. And maybe he doesn't trust that his brothers didn't do the same thing to his father. Maybe he wondered when the 10 of them showed up if they had already done away with Benjamin and Jacob. What were these men capable of if they would sell a boy, Joseph, into slavery and consider killing him? If they were jealous, they would have been jealous of Benjamin as well. They would have been jealous of the relationship their father had when they saw that he mourned for Joseph in such a way that he didn't even seem to care they were still alive. Um, maybe they did something to him. Maybe Joseph is still trying to figure out who these men, his brothers, are, and whether they're still the kind of people that sold him into slavery. And maybe his intent was not to get all of them there, but maybe only Benjamin. Um, Just a thought. Number two, what happened in 44, 3 through 13? A, as morning dawned, the men were sent on their way with their donkeys. B, Joseph said to his steward, go after these men at once, and when you catch up to them, say to them, why have you repaid good for evil? Isn't the cup of my master drinks from and also uses for divination? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? Then C, when the steward caught up to them, the brothers denied what he was saying. That's true. D, they said that if any one of them has the cup, the person would die and the rest of them would become his slaves. They obviously didn't think Benjamin had the cup. Given how they responded when he was found with it, they never would have said that because he's the one they're supposed to be protecting with their own lives. And by the way, when Judah responds that way, um, perhaps he is showing Joseph that now he's willing to give his own life for his brother, which is obviously very different from what he and the other brothers did to Joseph. Um, so they obviously didn't think it was going to be there. The cup was found in Benjamin's sack, and they tore their clothes, and they all returned to the city. So they didn't stick with what they'd originally said. They all went to the city. They went back together. Um, it's interesting, you know. Originally, they left Simeon and they left him kind of in prison and didn't go back for him. And maybe Joseph is trying to figure out: have these guys continued to be so hateful to each other that they don't care that one of them is in prison? If they left Simeon, what are they going to do now with Benjamin? And number three, what happened when they returned according to 44:14 through 45:7? And that's a big chunk, I know. A, Joseph played the part of the angry ruler holding them accountable. They offered themselves all as slaves, but Joseph only wanted the one who had the cup to stay as a slave. That's true. B, Judah recounted the whole process and why he could not return to his father without Benjamin. He asked to take Benjamin's place. So this is love. Um, we can talk about Jesus said, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lays down his life for his friends. This is Judah's brother, and now instead of killing him like they were wanting to do with Joseph, he's offering his own life up for him, and that is a big change. And notice it's at that point that Joseph could no longer control himself and cried out, have everyone leave my presence. D, no one was with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, but he wept so loud that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. And then E, Joseph revealed himself to his brothers and told them not to be distressed, but that God sent him ahead of them to preserve a remnant on earth and to save their lives. By the way, remnant is key. Um, there's a strain of theology throughout the Bible called remnant theology that God is continuously trying to preserve for himself a righteous remnant. In other words, when everybody sort of goes their own way, it always seems to be a small group that remains faithful to God. It always seems to be a small group that continues to serve God. Um, and so Joseph's just declaring God's purpose was to make sure we, people of God that bear his name, that know his truth, didn't get wiped off the face of the earth. People that have spoken with him, that have heard from him, but that we continue to remain those representatives. So whether we go back to Noah, which we studied in the book of Genesis, or, you know, going forward to the church, the people of God that bear witness to the resurrection of the Christ, God is preserving for himself a remnant. Of all the moments when the people of God could have just been fully wiped off the face of the earth in history, and perhaps even other people were wiped off the face of the earth, and yet somehow somebody who's faithful to God remains as a witness to God's faithfulness. So, number 4, what happened in 45, 8 through 28? Joseph sends them back to their father to bring him back so that they can all live near him and not become destitute. So he tells them, these are the dreams that Pharaoh had. This is what has happened. This is how we've got to this place. And by the way, there's 5 more years of this coming. And it's not going to work for you just to travel back and forth. By the time you buy food from me, you're gonna be out of food, out of money. Just come here and we'll take care of you. B. Pharaoh hears about what is happening and affirms that he will give them the best of the land of Egypt. C. Joseph's brothers did as they were told and went back to their father to tell him that Joseph was alive. And then D. Israel said, I'm convinced my son Joseph is alive. I will go to see him before I die. And yeah, that's a big text for just those few things to happen, but those are the key things that happen. Number 5, what happened on the way to Egypt according to 46, 1 through 4. This is a smaller chunk. When they reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, Jacob, Jacob. Jacob replied, Here I am. I think I've said this before, that here I am is a sort of continuous recurring response to God's call when God speaks to people and throughout Scripture. And I think that there's deeper meaning than trying to locate. It's not like the mall map that says you are here. It's not a location, it's an availability for God to speak. Um, D. God told, not gold, God told him not to be afraid to go down to Egypt. So this is an affirmation of what he's doing. God promised to make Israel a great nation there, which may have been a fear given that we know Abraham and Isaac, and then ultimately Jacob intentionally did not stay long in the land of their father, did not move out of the land of Canaan because it was the place that was promised to them. God promised to go down to Egypt and bring Israel back again. So I got this. You can go to Egypt. I'm going to bring you back. I'm not sure they would have gone if they would have known how that was all going to happen ultimately, but God promised. God promised that Joseph's own hand would close his eyes. So, in other words, Joseph is really there, and ultimately, when you die, Joseph will be with you. And after all of this time, and him thinking that Joseph was dead, that's a huge promise. Number 6, what happened when Jacob arrived in Egypt according to 46:28 through 47:12? Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. So they knew where Joseph was, but they didn't know where Goshen was, and that's where they're settling. B. Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. C. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. D. Israel said to Joseph, Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive. Joseph told Pharaoh that his family was shepherds and tend livestock, and they were allowed to settle in Goshen because shepherds are detestable to Egyptians. And oh, by the way, pick the most gifted of the shepherds, and they can take care of my herds as well, because the Egyptians didn't want to do it. That was gross. That was dirty. That was below them. And then Jacob blessed Pharaoh, which is quite the thing. Obviously, Pharaoh knew that Joseph and Joseph's God were significant, were that This God had the ability to apparently see in the future and give wisdom to people. And so Jacob, sort of the forefather, the elder, blessing Pharaoh, although it seems odd with Pharaoh with all this power, um, probably wasn't that odd because Pharaoh had recognized the God of Joseph, who was the God of Jacob. Number seven, what do you think the point of all this was, and how do we apply it to our life? So there's just a lot here, and I would say for me, God is providing for. So we're not to Genesis 50:20 yet, but part of what is said in this text, I didn't focus on it too much in the Bible study because we will do a lot on it when we get to Genesis 50, um, but Joseph assures them when he reveals himself that God had his hand in all of this. So God is taking care of Israel. God is preserving a holy remnant for himself. Um, Joseph maybe still is testing to see if his brothers have changed. But ultimately, what we see is that Judah is willing to lay down his life for Benjamin, and it's at that point when Joseph reveals himself. So it must be that that was the thing that Joseph was trying to figure out. Are they still the kind that will put Benjamin or even Jacob in danger, or have they changed? Are they the sort of people that now lay down their lives for one another? In a way that they obviously did back then. To me, that's one of the biggest things. Um, and we could even talk about Jacob blessing Pharaoh and how significant that was, and what it says about Pharaoh's belief in the God of Joseph, the God of Jacob. So um, these are good points. Um, how have we changed? Are we still the same people that backbite and fight and try to and are willing to kill one another, or are we the type of people that would lay down our lives for others? Well, maybe that's a good question to end